Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of NintendoFuse's Industry Talk. I'm your host, Barry, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Paul Helman, the game developer behind the 2D platformer Horus. So, Paul, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. It's a pleasure to get to sit down and talk with you. I got to take a look at the game. The game looks great. And before we really get into Horus, why don't you tell everybody a little background information on who you are and what you've done?
Well, I've worked in the video games industry for 27 years now, almost exactly. I started on the 11th of January 1995. And yes, it's been a long and winding road. um, I started at Probe Entertainment, who were the people that made various conversions of arcade games and licenses. So the very first thing I worked on was Die Hard Trilogy for the PlayStation, Saturn, and PC, which was obviously quite a good learning experience. I would have been 17 at the time, which, as I have great fun telling everyone, I broke the law daily by watching Die Hard Trilogy, which of course is a 18 certificate in the UK.
That's work, right?
Yeah, no, it was brilliant. Like, I still don't really know where I stand with the law there, but I suppose I was mature enough to watch it, seeing as I was being employed to do it. I then worked at Probe for 4 years, but I ended up leaving and joining Simon Pick, who was the coder on Die Hard. He formed a company called Picture House. We were a subsidiary of Sony. Unfortunately, we only actually got one game out called Terracon, which was for the PS1 and sold like 12,000 copies or something ridiculously small. It's quite frustrating because that was very, very well received. It got lots of like 9, sort of 10 out of 10s and stuff. But the main problem was it was for the PS1 and came out, I think, 2 weeks after the PS2 came out.
That was a tough time.
So yeah, I'm sure you can imagine exactly what happened there. And yeah, the game we worked on after that was slightly controversial by accident in that it was kind of a crazy game show involving like crazy characters going around bombing things and blowing stuff up. And we had a series of levels set around the world where you would buy up various landmarks. And I had just finished making the World Trade Center. I'm sure you can tell exactly where this was going. And yeah, about a month later, September the 11th happened, and yes, that was very much cancelled on its feet.
I can kind of understand why.
Yeah, I don't mean to make light of the situation at all, but I'm sure you can understand why that was cancelled.
Yeah, little sensitive time.
Exactly. We worked on a version of Lemmings, which was almost 80% complete. I always felt if I could release a hacked copy of that would go down quite well on various unreleased game websites. But I think Simon's the only person with an actual copy, so he'd probably get into trouble with Sony if we did actually release that.
Was that PlayStation 1 or PlayStation 2?
Yeah, that was PS2. Yeah, that was the last thing we were doing for Sony. But yeah, when that then wound down, I just went freelance in 2004 and worked on a straggling amount of stuff. I did some artwork for like a Cadbury's advert. I briefly worked on the awful Wii Doctor Who game. I worked on educational High School Musical game. A plug and play TV WWE wrestling game, which I worked on with Sean. We should say actually, I met Sean, the coder of Horace, at Picture House. He started not long after I did. No, he started before I did, actually. Yeah, but we then met there and obviously stayed friends for, I don't know, 24, 5 years now, whatever it is. Yeah, so I muddled along doing freelancing for 11 years, 10, 11 years. But during that time, I was sort of working on my own stuff in the background, which is what eventually became Horus. Because around 2010, I thought, right, I'm going to have a go at doing some stuff myself, and downloaded Game Maker, which was simple enough for me to fiddle around with, but complicated enough for me to get a sort of demo of Horus going. But that then took me 4.5 years, which I was then in a position to shop round to various publishers, which was at the point where I decided I needed to code up, because otherwise I'd still be making Horus now, probably for the next 5 years. Because I can code, I'm just ridiculously slow. I'm an artist by trade, so my coding is very much look everything up on Google and then try and make it work in the situation that I wanted to do. Yeah, and then in 2015, 505 Games picked up my demo, and yeah, they basically funded us until it released in summer 2019.
That is awesome. Now, you say Horus was like a pet project. It was something you were working on yourself. How did it come to be? Like, what made you go with the 2D side scroller and the story elements and stuff? Like, where did this come from?
Um, I've always been a big fan of 2D side scrollers. I'm pretty sure the first video game I bought with my own pocket money was a game called Jet Set Willy. I don't know if you would have had that in the States. It was for the ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64. It was a side-scrolling stick man. I think it was 83. So obviously we're literally talking a year or two before Mario. Like it's very primitive by today's standards. But it was basically a little stick man in a hat going around a huge house with hundreds of rooms clearing up items, because he was supposed to have had a party the night before, and so he was cleaning up after his party. So there's wine glasses and beer bottles and stuff everywhere. So I thought, hey, I'll nick that. That's a good idea. And then I wrote a story which just went all out of control with a robot.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes that's where the best ideas come from. They just let your imagination run and bloom, really. So obviously, doing stuff on the PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 is very different than PC and Switch now. What were some of the challenges you faced? Now that you're alone and all this, and you're going through and getting the game, out there.
Well, that's it. I think the key thing is being alone, having to do everything by yourself. I mean, obviously, I have Sean, who's very technically minded, so can do most things. But at the same time, I still have to do the other side of everything myself. But I don't know. I enjoy a good tinker, like getting my hands dirty and seeing what I can do with things. So yeah, I think that was the main thing. I mean, we decided to use Unity from the off, because of its portability. So getting it onto the Switch was actually, I mean, it was 5 months work, but about half of that was mainly testing. So it was reasonably straightforward going that way. It was just getting it going in the first place was absolute nightmare from my point of view.
Now, how is it like going from Sony and working with Sony directly to now being on Nintendo? Like, was that kind of jarring, or was it kind of interesting? Was it easier or harder? Like,
yeah, I mean, I didn't have a huge amount of dealing myself with either of them. As I say, with Sony, I worked for Picture House, so I just got paid by Sony effectively. And once every couple of months, a scary man would come around and tell us our game wasn't good enough. Actually, no, that's exactly the same, because when we were making Horace, Dean, our producer from 505, came round every month and told me it wasn't good enough. So not a huge amount of change.
There's some parallels there.
Yeah, I just wasn't going into an office. He just came into my house and told me it wasn't very good. I jest, of course. He was great and very supportive.
Yeah, but now, how is it? I mean, you're on Nintendo. Like, from a lot of developers I talked with, like that's a dream of theirs. They grew up
Oh,
around Nintendo, and like, oh, now I'm on Nintendo. Has Nintendo themselves been very supportive as well of in the digital, architecture and the digital landscape?
um, oh, yeah. I mean, they were very good. Even because it was literally as lockdown was happening, whilst Sean and I were trying to get hold of dev kits, and they still managed to get us dev kits in 3-4 weeks, I think it was. Um, we were a bit worried we were going to be delayed, but I think in the end we were delayed by about 2 weeks at most, which, considering the world was shutting, this was literally
That's not
March
bad.
2020. Yeah, seeing as the world was shutting down.
Yeah, the world certainly took a turn for the worse then, but thankfully, you were able to get Horus out. Now, I mean, Horus is out. You have a physical coming of Horus coming this week from Super Rare. What's that been like? Getting your game out there on a physical cartridge.
Oh, that's something I very much want. I haven't had a physical release since Terracon, I believe. What's next to me?
Oh, look at that! That's awesome.
Yeah, it's even got an 8 out of 10 by official PlayStation Magazine sticker on the front and everything. Yeah, I think that was literally the last physical release I had, and that was 2000. Yeah, it was 2000. Like, um, so yeah, I'm over the moon to be able to actually have another thing in my hand. I'm a big fan of stuff.
I hear you. Physical collector forever, and it's always exciting to talk to developers and then have them get their game physical. It's just a really awesome thing.
Yeah,
So I'm glad that this is happening for you. But now, I mean, 2019, you released Horus. Now the physical's coming out in 2022. What's next? Have you thought about future projects? Is there already something being worked on?
yes. I do have a plan for another game, which is equally as genre spanning and nonsensical as Horace is. Um, Again, it's sort of a 2D side scroller, some platforming, more combat this time. Again, lots of characters, and time travel.
Ooh. Characters and time travel.
I think I can sum it up with 4 children, a retired professional wrestler, and the ghost of Joan of Arc save the world using video games.
So it's like Bill and Ted with their evil robot versions, Hulk Hogan and
Yeah, that'll do.
Oh, that sounds exciting. Now I'm really interested to see where this goes for sure. Now this is something I always ask anybody I talk with, and I always love the different answers I get. If you could get a phone call right now, phone rings, you pick it up. Who would you love it to be to tell you that they're gonna tell you could work on any game you want, any IP you want, you're gonna work on the next property. Which property do you want this person to say you now have full creative control over doing the next game?
I have to say, Mr. Iwata of Mother fame, I would love to make. I guess it would be Mother 5, seeing as there's a fan-made Mother 4 in production or doing something.
Well, that doesn't really count
Yeah,
officially.
well, I'd hate to ruin all their work.
Well, Nintendo will
But
do
yeah,
that.
I'd
Don't
love
worry.
to do something with a Mother game. I'm a huge Mother Earthbound fan.
Yeah. Wow. There you go. There's a lot of people who watch our stuff are big Mother fans. So I can't say anything bad about that. That is fantastic. I mean, I hope that phone call comes in. Let's make it happen.
Well, seeing as Nintendo seem a bit reluctant to even release the games, I can't see it happening in too quickly.
Yeah, you never know. Stranger things have happened, right?
Yeah.
Now, is there anything like you want to say to the watchers, the listeners, about Horus? Like, if you said, "Hey, why should somebody pick up this game digitally or physically, why should they spend the time on this game?
It harkens back to the golden age of 16-bit gaming. Lots of platforming, um, plenty of story. Everyone says it's very heartfelt. Lots of people have said it's made them cry and stuff, which I apologise for. And it's very big. It's 20, 25 hours, like the main story, and people have sunk 50, 60 hours into it trying to collect everything.
Wow.
So, yeah, I mean, there's 20, I think it's 24 mini games. Yeah, I ran out of steam there. That was, that was a bit of a rubbish way to end. But yeah, it's a big game. Let's put it that way.
So many mini games, the developer themselves has to think about it. There you go. There's your selling point. This is why you should pick up Horus.
It ran out of all control years ago. I've lost track of so much of it.
Well, if you are interested in picking up Horus, you absolutely can get it on the eShop. You could also go to Super Rare on January 27th of 2022. The physical is going up. It's going to be £29, and it's going to be only 4,000 copies for those in America. Keep in mind that this is a European release, but it will play on American Switch systems. So do not be worried about that. It's region free. So if you're a physical collector like myself, I know I'll be picking up a copy, and so hopefully you do as well. But if you don't care and you just want digital, definitely give Horace a shot on the eShop. And for more information on Paul Helman and to get up to date with what he's doing, you can follow him on Twitter at HoraceDev. Paul, I want to thank you so much for just taking some minutes out of your day to sit down and talk with me.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
The pleasure was all mine. And for all your other Nintendo news, information, podcasts, game chats, and industry talks just like this one, please go to NintendoFuse.com and follow us and subscribe here on YouTube. Thank you again so much for watching, and have yourself a fantastic day.